You alright guys, how's it going? Right, back again with another video blog basically. Now what I do in these videos is basically discuss things that have happened to me in gaming basically. Basically whether it be bad, good, just plain ugly, or just, it's been an influence on me to the point where it's kept me going in the game. Now what I'm going to do, I'm also going to discuss in this video anyway about why I like technology as well, because I'm somewhat of a tech freak as well, so we'll go there later on. But to start this video off, basically what I want to touch on is the fact that why I am such a gamer, basically. And the reason for this is because when my parents were concerned, gaming was not a big deal. It was something that kept you from real life, basically. To a certain extent I did agree with them, but in my retrospect it's not always that thing that kept me going. Now the reason it kept me going is because as basically like a 5-year-old, my first computer was basically NES, and I loved it to bits, absolutely loved it, but at the time here in the UK as much, the actual consoles weren't exactly reliable where the early ones came in. And my console broke, basically. My NES broke and it just stopped working. I don't know what happened, I was too young to figure it out. It's one of them. It happened, it broke, and that was it. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because after that, my dad, who basically he was the one looking after me, basically. My mum was elsewhere, and basically they split up, so I was living with my dad, and my dad had the biggest influence on me at that point. And basically after that computer broke, I didn't get another one, and he refused to buy me another one. And I was gutted. I was absolutely distraughtly gutted, and the whole idea of that was a little bit surreal to me, because while all my mates were playing obviously their NES, or a couple of years down the line, Super Nintendo, and then they went into like the whole PlayStation, Sony PlayStation, all that, I was still stuck not having any of them. The only thing I was allowed in my room at the time was a TV and a DVD player, or a VCR at that point, playing VHS tapes. Remember them? Remember them? I do. The amount I broke of them. Anyway, back to the point. This is where my influence starts. This is where my gaming comes into really its own, basically. This is why I collect now. Now, like I said, when I was 5 years old I had that computer, that was great, and after that I never got another one. I just wasn't allowed one. And generally that was gutting for me, because obviously all my mates were playing their games, their consoles, and I was like, alright, fair enough. What the fuck do I do? It was almost like my self-esteem were down here, and it had just been pulled down. And yeah, I was generally gutted, pissed off, and it touched a nerve, it did. But my friends were nice enough to share their experience with the gaming with me on their consoles, like 2-player games like Crash Bandicoot or Crash Nitro Kart. That was one awesome game. I didn't get the chance to play like Super Mario 64 with anybody, because none of my friends owned an N64 at the time. They were more obsessed with the PlayStation, the new 3D fangled graphics and all that. But it was still a way for me to kind of break free away from my dad and play video games, something he didn't want me to do. And that's kind of where my experience with gaming comes in, because at that point I really got into gaming. It was almost like an escape for me, with me and my friends playing like Tony Hawk, Crash Bandicoot. Final Fantasy VII was one of the first Final Fantasies I ever played, and I loved it to bits. Just in general, I actually, like, one of my mates had Gran Turismo as well. I ended up having a 2-player game on Gran Turismo. I was crap at it, but it was the experience of being able to like defy my dad and kind of give it its own shot. and do what I wanted to do for a change, you know what I mean? Now, when I reached 16, I got kicked out, basically. My dad disappeared abroad. He emigrated, and basically I got kicked out. I got moved in with my mum. At that point, I bought my very first own computer. It wasn't brand new, it was just pre-owned. But I have covered this in a previous episode as well, early on this channel. But I have covered it before. I bought my first console, which was a Sega Dreamcast. At the time, that was the console that I loved to bits. Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Jet Set Radio, or Jet Grind Radio in the US. And also, obviously, I had a game called Magnetic Neo, which was, it was almost like a weird platformer. It was great, absolutely fantastic. Resident Evil Code Veronica, I had that as well. Choo Choo Rocket. I was into all those games, and that was my kind of bliss away. The amount of days that I spent in that bedroom at my mum's house when I moved in with her, I just closed the curtains, closed the door, leant back on my chair and just played. I was stuck to it. When I got a chance, I was always stuck to it. Now, when I met my girlfriend, this is where everything gets into perspective for me. This is where I realised that I wanted to collect. When I met my girlfriend, who's currently my wife, who also loves gaming, I just had. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have half the stuff behind me. But the thing is, when I met her, the gaming became more of a prime thing for me. It kind of built up on what I'd already experienced, and this is why all my friends were gamers. We had fun playing, like, on my mate's PS2 at the time. I actually ended up buying one myself after this as well. Playing Burnout 3, Takedown. And I loved it. The experience, the laughs, the drink, you know, we just cracked open a beer and just sat there and just played. You know what I mean? It was all about kind of sense of community, where you were sat in the same room playing the games. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of mention that might hit a nerve with some people, but I don't like the online gaming. Playing on an online game, sat there like that, staring at a screen with nobody in the room. You know what I mean? Because there's no experience like playing with friends in the same room. You can have a laugh, you can be a little bit loud, you can have a bit of a drink, you can have a little bit of a shove, you know what I mean? And basically the online gaming thing takes away from that. It takes away from the sense of community that you've got. Fair enough, it's a different kind of community. It's an online multiplayer community, but it's not like having someone in the same room as you. You still can't beat playing Mario Kart 8 on 2 pads on the Wii U with somebody in the same room. It doesn't equate to anything else. That's just how I feel about that. But basically, that sense of community, like while playing Burnout on the PS2 and playing with friends, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. From there on in, I kind of got into a collecting kind of scenario. At the time, I was only collecting for the PS2, original Xbox, and GameCube, because that's all that I had at the time. And I was in part-time work at the time as well. But that was kind of like my first foray into gaming. I also remember the first time I played Halo and Halo 2. The first one I played was Halo 2, stupidly enough. Don't ask me why, I just played Halo 2 first. That's the first game I got. I looked at it and thought, oh, I'll pick it up, I'll have a do. And it blew me away. I was literally stumped on what I could do on it. And while playing all these new games, it actually got to a point where I was thinking to myself, well, I like my old games. I like my old Sonic the Hedgehog. No, I mean, I played Sonic the Hedgehog before briefly with my same age nephew. I'm going to put that as, because they're the same age now. I have an older sister who is a hell of a lot older than me. And basically she had kids first, and obviously they had things after. But I'd played basically Sonic the Hedgehog on my nephew's Mega Drive, and I was stuck to it. I was. But basically, while playing these new gen games on the Xbox and the PS2 and GameCube, I just thought, how cool would it be to play those games again, to, you know, just experience some of the games I've never experienced before, like Castlevania, for instance. I'd only played one Castlevania game in my life, and I'm collecting them now because I want them that badly. But the fact of the matter is that all those memories came flooding back. I want to play these old games. I want to play the older games that I used to know. And basically that's when I kind of came to the conclusion that basically to be a collector. And basically I started looking on YouTube of all places and saw this huge community that basically was trading, was basically swapping things online because they had doubles of things that they didn't want. They had consoles they wanted to get rid of, but they weren't really worth that much, so they just swapped them for other things. And when I saw that community, it was like, well, again, that's not an online, it's not so much an online community. You're still seeing the person there, you can still chat to them on Facebook and things like that, but you still watch these videos with with these people that become your mates. For instance, like Ryan Chan, for instance, I've done a trade with him recently, and if I'm honest, he's become a mate. I mean, you know, it's one of those. There's a lot of people that you add on Facebook through YouTube and giving out like information, advice, friendly advice on what you want to collect, and it's almost like you're making friends that you're not really going to see in person. You might do every so often, but it's one of those things. You look at that and you go, well, yeah, that's how friends are made. You know, I mean, that's kind of how I started with YouTube, just looking at these videos, like looking at Machinima, for instance, things like that, and then gradually seeing these people putting like video blogs up, which is what I'm doing now, which feels really weird. But basically, like pick up videos and things like that, and basically, it's become this sense of community for me where places at work don't really talk about basically each other's hobbies. It's that simple. You know, my hobby to people is just being lazy, but that's not how I see it. My hobby is something that I feel passionate about. I physically love my hobby and I want to keep it going. And basically seeing all these people on YouTube and things like that have kind of inspired me to do so and make that a completely different experience than what it normally would be. And it just makes so much sense to me that that's kind of where I started, looking at other people's videos and thinking, well, I wouldn't mind doing that, and making my first kind of like video blog almost. When I started it and I signed into YouTube and I thought, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a video, it was one of those experiences. It was a pick-up video of all things, and even though I wasn't in front of the camera at the time, that's what I was scared about the most when I started doing these videos, was basically being in front of the camera. And basically, when I did that first video, even though I wasn't in front of it, I was nervous as hell. I was just like shaking, cameras all over, show all that, this, and I was, it's just one of those scenarios. And what makes it all the more better is the fact that people found me on YouTube, I found them on YouTube, and basically it's become this interaction between just a couple of mates that want to trade and collect and have something in common to actually talk about, because obviously they can't talk about it to people in their normal lives, and that's what makes things great, that's what makes it fantastic, because you know you've got someone to talk to. If you wanted to, like for instance, if I wanted to get hold of Ryan or like Mikey G, that I don't know if he's changed his name, I think, right? But he used to be known as Mikey G, and basically if I wanted to get hold of him, I could talk to him about gaming, get some advice or something like that. And it's just that sense of community that made me feel more comfortable doing that first video, because people found me and I found them. And basically, like, I'm just over my first year doing these videos, and I don't want to stop doing them, because the sense of community that everybody's got, the sense of friendship everybody's got, everybody wants the same thing, and it just makes me feel great inside, just knowing that there are people out there that have the same hobby as me and not getting looked down on by the people that I do know in my normal life. So that's how I felt, and it was a really weird scenario, but it was really, really good to know. But as for my recent experience in that game and how that's going to end, honestly, I don't think it is. It's that hobby is something that I've almost tried getting out a few times. I've had to sell my console several times, as you guys know, and for some unknown reason, I've always gone back to. I've always had that kind of, well, no, I want to do this, and I've still gone back to it, and I'm still doing it after all these years, and I've now been collecting for roughly about 6-7 years, and been doing these videos for like a year and a half, and like I said, the sense of friendship everybody got for each other, it's absolutely fantastic. But anyway guys, that's been me and my experiences. Why not tell me about your experiences in gaming, and why you got into gaming in the first place, or how you got into gaming, and if there's any favourite things that, or favourite memories that you have that you want to share with me, because obviously my gaming story isn't the only one. Everybody has their own gaming story, and if I'm honest, mine might be a little bit more sad and surreal, but everybody's story is different, and I'm intrigued to know what you guys have experience-wise and why you got into gaming, because without knowing you guys, I wouldn't really be into gaming. I'd have probably stopped it way before now, because it's you guys that kept me going. But anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. Hope you stayed for the whole 17-minute video, and in the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you guys in another video. Enjoy and happy gaming, guys.